Yo, what's going on? It's your main man, Rick the Dawn. Hey, what's going on, y'all? I finally watched episode 5 of Last Chance U basketball, and this episode was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie to you, I really enjoyed it. A lot of memories came up just watching it. It definitely took me back with regards to living where I used to live and also basketball as a coach. I mean, this was a powerful, powerful episode. I would argue that one of the most powerful episodes of the season. Before I get started, this episode is brought to you by the Really Hood podcast. If you like real talk, then you're gonna love my podcast. Go check it out. The Really Hood podcast is available everywhere, 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 worldwide. Go check it out. Yeah. So this episode appeared to be mostly about Coach Mosley and his origin story, if you will, like where he comes from and what things make him who he is. This episode starts off with Coach Mosley meeting up with some friends and reminiscing on things that he went throughout life. And this episode is about him, and I would argue it's also about his father. Now, I didn't know much about his father because this is the first season that really delves into his personal life this way. Um, his father, according to Coach Mosley, was essentially the perfect man. Now, when I say the perfect man, we already know there's no such thing as a perfect person. No one's perfect. But I would argue that there are people, despite their circumstances, who defy logic. They do things that are not quite normal. And I'll give you an example of a person I'm talking about. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., for example, not perfect. We heard about a lot of different things that took place via FBI recordings and things of that nature. However, he still defied logic. He still did things that put his own life in danger. It is not normal for a person to do things that could jeopardize their life. That's not normal, and it's certainly not normal for that person to do that in a way that could jeopardize, or I should say, shorten their lifespan. That's not a normal concept. Malcolm X, also John F. Kennedy, these kind of things. Like so, that's what I mean by that. And according to Coach Mosley, his father was that kind of person. He was phenomenal. And I did want to talk about something. There was a powerful moment in this episode where Coach Mosley explains, an experience in which he witnessed a young man get gunned down. And he talked about how abnormal it was for him to explain what had happened to this person. He got shot in it. He got shot twice, I think in the body and one in the head. And he went and told people, like, hey, someone got shot. And it was just like, hey, well, it happens. This is the reality that takes place in a lot of people's lives. Being from Detroit, Michigan myself, I am very thankful to say that I've only seen maybe one incident where I saw someone in physical danger. But for the most part, I never seen like a dead body just lying there. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I got through Detroit, Michigan. I lived in Detroit for, I want to say, about 20 years, 21 years before I went to college and then graduated and moved out. But certainly I'm surprised I never seen just a physical dead body. But however, the point is, I still saw a lot of things that the average person doesn't see. I still survived things that the average person doesn't survive. If I were to sit here on one of these little videos and tell you what I've actually seen, things I've actually witnessed, a lot of things would change. And not to go into any detail, but a lot of things would change. A lot of people would wonder why I would go that route, right? A lot of people would better understand who I am. I'm sure as people watch me, they're like, What's going on? I don't understand. Is something missing?" It's because I can't delve into things that I really want to talk about. I can't because of a code. It's a code. But I can attest to growing up in the ghetto, the hood, what have you, and just seeing things you're just not supposed to see. And I think everybody has a little bit of that story, even if you're from the country. Maybe you saw your dad kill a hog or your dad kill a cow. Like that's not something that the average person sees. So it's not so unique in terms of the hood or ghetto, what have you. Everybody has experienced some trauma on their way to who they are today. Everybody, and it's just different types of trauma. And one of the reasons I do these kind of videos is because I feel like more important than the videos or the episodes I'm talking about is just the human connection. And I do these to show people like, hey, we are all human. That's why I don't get on these things and try to be something I'm not, right? You might find several flaws in the way that I present these, but I do that on purpose so that you understand that I am a human being. We all are human and we all go through things. But we saw the human side of Coach Mosley, and I really, really enjoyed seeing that because it took me behind the man. It took me behind it took me behind the personality or the character, and that's incredibly important. This episode, more than many, just showed the humanality or the human side of basketball. There's a point in this episode where Coach Mosley is sitting in the chair, and you don't really understand why he's sitting there so quietly. And as he's sitting in that chair, he's holding his hand up. And as players walk through the door, they're pounding in his hand and kind of going about their business in the background. But Coach Mosley is sitting there and just like, and as guys walk through, they're pounding his hand and they kind of like going to the locker and things like that. And then Coach Rob comes in and he's laying out the details to the game itself. Like, hey guys, we're gonna do this. You're gonna check this player. So he's going through gameplay detail. But Coach Mosley is very oddly just sitting there with his hand up, with the most stern face that you can imagine, just sitting there, right? And then out of absolutely nowhere, he starts to stand up and he screams at the top of his lungs. And without saying anything to his players react in a way that was so amazing and so phenomenal. While he's standing up and he begins to scream, and his players, without any coercion, they began to scream with him. And that is the connection that you get when you're in the game of basketball. It was almost as if Coach Mosley was getting prepared for war, and he had to center himself before he could talk to his guys. And when it was time to talk to his guys, he didn't have the words to say. So instead, he just let out a loud scream. And it was almost like the other players, they also felt the same way. They wanted to say something, but it just the words didn't materialize. And when they heard him scream, that was confirmation that what they were feeling was valid. So instead of saying anything, they just screamed with the coach. And this is the connection of basketball. This is the connection that I miss from the game of basketball. The camaraderie that guys build when they're on the same team and they're playing in a sport which is oftentimes very combative. It is a connection that cannot be explained. Okay. You know, I watched this episode and I was wondering to myself as I'm watching, what do I really want to talk about? Do I want to talk about the fact that Shamar finally broke out and showed that he was the player that we already knew he was? Do I want to talk about the fact that DC was absolutely amazing? Okay, do I want to talk about that? Or do I want to talk about human connection, the importance of human connection, the importance of understanding that we are all going through our own storylines, the importance of the fact that we are all, you know, these individuals on this planet and we have an entirety of a storyline. However, these storylines are still connected to others. If we take just a moment to understand that, right? Even though I'm where I am, you are where you are, and we're on two total different wavelengths, we're still connected in our humanality. There's still things that connect us, right? Um, sure, you might watch these videos for basketball content, but by this point, if you've watched more than one of my videos, you know that you're coming here for more than that. We're not going to sit here and talk about the X's and O's. It's a connection, right? And I think this episode really delved into that. It showed the human connection of it all. But I do want to take a moment and discuss DC. And I'll be honest, I'll be the first one to tell you, I wasn't a big fan of DC because he reminds me of the current male, all right, the current basketball player. You know, if you don't know, I'm 36 as of this moment. And I was born in the 80s. And there's a certain mindset of people born in the 80s. You know, it's like work hard. We're not so young that we are a part of this new generation, the social media. Like for us, we're like somewhere in the middle between the old school people and the new school people. We're right in the middle, right? We were not blessed to have cell phones in elementary school, middle school. We were not blessed to have those things. We got all that stuff in high school. So we're like right, it's right in the center. Like for me, if you were to take my cell phone for a month, I would survive. Um, I think that some of these newer guys, they don't even know what it feels like not to have a cell phone. I mean, it would shock someone for me to tell them, I remember a time when there's no such thing as a Facebook. I remember a time there was no such thing as an IG, right? Some people would be confused, like, wait, so there was no Facebook, there was no IG, there was no YouTube. Yes, there was no social media, right? The only thing that I had growing up, and this might put me like this might actually expose how like my age. We had Black Planet, and some people have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's all we had. In high school, we had Black Planet. That's it. It was a little website where you can create a profile and talk to other black people. That was it. That's all we had. And I'm sure, you know, white Americans had something different, Latino Americans had something different. In fact, I know what Latino Americans had. They had magenta.com. So there was the Black Planet, there was Magenta. And I guess for the white Americans, you had MySpace. So, you know, that's it. That was the crux of the top of what we had. And we didn't get that till high school. So DC is the equivalent of the modern male, in my personal opinion. He's someone who has lived through an avatar. And when I say an avatar, I'm talking about an online profile. He's created a online persona, and that's what I would call an avatar. It's not really you, right? He created an online avatar, you know, and even though he's posing in his photos, he's on TikTok. To me, that's still not the true DC, in my personal opinion. So that's what he is, and he's also grown up in the 2K era. And it's funny because so did I. Uh, in 2000, I remember the day like it was yesterday. My father and I, we were in DC. We went down to Cobo Hall. Cobo Hall was this like very professional building where you go to for like, you know, the auto show to see cars. It was very business like. So for whatever reason, my father and I went to Cobo Hall. It was like some kind of expo that was taking place where you had all these independent sellers selling things. You know, it's kind of cool, like a gun show, but it wasn't for guns; it's for everything. And we went down. We went past this booth, and they had a display of the newest video games. And you know, my father was a good guy. You know what I'm saying? He was a good guy. So he always wanted to bless us with opportunity and gifts. So that was my first time as I'm walking past his booth seeing the latest or the newest video game. It was NFL 2K to be exact. And it was on the Dreamcast console. Uh, so I also grew up in the video game creator player generation, just the early version of it. But now there are people who are so engrossed in video games that it's just a different type of connection. When we talk about the metaverse, Facebook is coming out with the metaverse, what have you, whatever. But my opinion is that the metaverse already exists. It's nothing for a person to go to a video game system, create a player, and join the world. I mean, when they log into their video games and they go online, there's players from all around the world also doing the exact same thing. DC reminds me of a video game player. So the question that guides this entire episode is DC NBA ready? I am happy to report that this episode did a lot of positive for DC. DC is a player that I did not think was worth a darn. And this episode showed that I was extremely wrong about DC. Now, DC throughout this season has been on the bench, basically upset with the fact that Coach Mosley is not putting him in the game. And my own personality is like, hey man, grow up. You'll get your chance. If you are really that good, then Coach Mosley would have already put you in the game. You're not that good. Like I'm that person. But man, he gives me hope for this new generation, and it's not uncommon for the prior generation to look down on the next generation, like, hey, they're missing this as in terms of personality traits. They're lazy. That's like common, right? So I'm looking at this new generation, the DC generation. I'm like, yo, they don't pay attention. They have short attention spans. They think that it's a video game. They don't understand. But man, he showed me so much this episode, and I know it's edited, so that means that whoever's taking all the footage and cutting it into slices, they're trying to show DC in the perfect light. They didn't show his misses, they didn't show his turnovers. You know what I mean? So it's not a raw take, but still, I can read through the lines. I can see between the lines. DC really, really matured from the beginning of the season until now. So coach finally let this guy get some run, and it really happened because of the COVID restrictions of 2021. Now I'm watching this in 2023, but the episode, you can tell it takes place in that time frame, and a lot of players, I want to say about 10 players, are asked to, sit on the sidelines because they can't play due to COVID situations. And this allows about 7 players to just, go hard without worrying about being subbed out. And DC went absolutely bonkers. Now, if you don't know who DC is, he is the son of an NBA player. He's this guy right here. Okay. I do apologize for the photo because, this is, you know, my channel, and we kind of do things the old-fashioned way. But so it's like a Polaroid. This is the new version of a Polaroid. Yeah, yeah, that's DC. Yeah, you know him. So no, it showed him in such a this guy is a freak of nature. If you ever seen a player that is extremely athletic, that's what DC is. DC is a freak of nature. He's a player that defies logic. I saw him on the court. This guy has the greatest springs in terms of being able to jump on a dime, on a whim. He has that. And just watching him explode from the ground up was a beauty to watch. This guy is crazy. This guy is a freak of nature. Um, and coach allowed him to shine. And I understood where coach was coming from because as a coach myself, or a former coach, I know guys just like DC. They're always talking. They're always energetic. They're always trying to show what they are. What they're that person. They're very personality driven. And when you see that as a coach, like this, you just see immaturity, and you don't want to put your professional record and reputation on the line for a kid because they present themselves as a kid. They're very very boisterous. They don't focus. They don't listen. All the things that adults do, they don't do. But man, this guy shows out. He's almost like 2 players in one. He's like a 3-point threat, and he's also a slasher. And I was ecstatic to see that DC is much more than a TikTok basketball player, which is disgusting. He's actually a basketball player. He has strong roots in the game of basketball. His father was an NBA player, played at Michigan as well, played with the Lakers. And man, the pedigree is strong. The pedigree is strong. And we got a chance to see behind the scenes. We got a chance to look behind the curtains of what DC presents, because what DC presents is, everything's fine. I'm having a good time. I'm a sex set. Like that's what he presents. However, it's deeper than that. There's something inside DC that's really pushing him. We saw that this episode. His father seems to be stricken due to health concerns with regards to, I believe he had a stroke. And DC said some things this episode which let me know that bothers him. And it should. It's his father. His father not showing up to the games, that kind of stuff is an issue. And I think this episode as a whole really delved into the man or men behind these personas. That including Mr. John Mosley, right? So that was a beautiful thing. We saw Shamar kind of have a fallback. He had some issues with coming to practice. I did not know he was staying with Coach Rob, so that was very surprising. And also, I do want to take a moment to talk about how good this team looked this episode. This team looked unbeatable. And believe it or not, they looked unbeatable. I don't know how to put it positive. Like I don't know how to put a spin on that. They looked absolutely unbeatable. And I would have loved to see this version of ELAC go against San Francisco again because they just looked unbeatable. I talked about earlier how Coach Mosley is sitting in a chair and he's just kind of like just soaking it all in. He's silent. And they're going against a team called Saint. I don't remember the name. I don't remember the name. But this team look very, very seasoned. They seem to be well coached as well. And I thought that this team would get the best of ELAC. In fact, the coach goes to Coach Mosley and says, "Hey, we arrived 3 hours early, or what have you, and there was no coach to present us or to meet us, and it's very unprofessional." And that is the statements that put Coach Mosley in the mood that he was in. And coach doesn't go back and say, "No, no, somebody was here," or "No, you tripping." He doesn't do any of that. He hears what he says and he goes to the locker room. And he sits in that chair, that green chair, and he just sits there like Scarface. And as a coach, I could absolutely understand the mind state that he was in. Like, we're gonna kill these guys, and I'm gonna show him. Like, that's the mindset that he's in, and he says none of that. And that's the beauty of that moment. If you haven't seen this episode, if you haven't seen this series, every person that's been through any situation in which people doubt you, or people don't think you're good enough, or people look at you and say you don't have enough, you're not talented enough, that moment is so powerful. It wasn't a basketball moment, it was a humanity moment, it was a human moment. He's sitting there and he's just like, "I've had enough of losing. I've had enough of mediocrity. I've had enough of excuses. I'm ready to show and prove." And he's just sitting there, and you can feel the buildup. And then at that very moment, just a moment or two later from what I'm talking about, he explodes. Have you ever seen the explosion of a volcano in human form? If not, go watch the episode, because that's what happens. He's reached his boiling point on screen, on camera, and he explodes. And he lets out the loudest yell possible. And his team are galvanized by that electricity, because that's what we are. We're energy, right? And his team feels that energy, and they're instantly inspired. So inspired that they don't say, "Let's go, coach. We got this. We're gonna show." They don't even say things. They just scream. That is how powerful that moment is. And that's how strong Coach Mosley is in that moment. They just scream. There's no conversation, there's no verbalization. Screams. All right. Have you ever felt like that? And if you have, then you understand that moment. All right. Sometimes just words don't do it, because the moment you're in, the thing you're feeling is energy based. It's not conversation based. It's energy based, and the energy just erupted, and it was beautiful. And I do want to take a moment just to say, these guys, ELAC, they were blowing teams out. Now, I don't have all the numbers. I don't have them all. But I'm seeing wins by 30 points, 40 points, 50 points, 16. It was crazy margins with regards to how much they're winning by. Now, I'm not sure if they win a championship this season, but I'm going to go on record as saying they probably don't, because I'm not getting that kind of energy from the editors. The editors seem to be showing their high points now because they realize a drop is coming, and I can feel that, I can see that, I can sense it. But I'm gonna tell you right now, the team that I saw in this episode could be anybody on the planet. Okay. Anybody who's not ready to meet their intensity will take a loss tonight. But the thing about energy is that it doesn't translate from day to day. You have to build it up. It has to be there. It's a very organic process, a very organic thing. And there were certain things in place that made Coach Mosley feel that way that probably won't carry on throughout the season. And it's very unfortunate. Man, yeah. So just a beautiful episode. I don't know if you saw it, But this was the quintessential example of what happens when a lot of people have the same goal and they tap into the best version of themselves. That's what this felt like. Okay, this episode felt like people tapping into the best version of themselves. Um, if you ever played a sport, if you ever went to school or education, if you ever studied before, you're studying to be the optimum version of yourself for a moment. And we saw in this episode, rather, uh, people who had trained for a game, and we saw the optimum version of what they can do. That's what it was. That's what I saw today. And it was a very beautiful episode. I'm really, this is one of those episodes I might watch again just to experience it again because it was so powerful. And also just seeing the background of Coach Mosley. He talked about being in a car at one point and some guy coming up to the car that he was in and tapping the window with a firearm, and how Coach Mosley thought that in that moment he was going to die. Like, that's real, man. That's a real situation. That's real. I've been in situations similar to that where I felt like, yo, this is it. And by the grace of God, it wasn't. You know what I mean? I've been there before. So hearing that type of situation or story, it just reached me on a different level. You know, I think a lot of these urban stories need to be spoken about because they matter, man, a little bit. They matter. I don't want to glorify them, but certainly I want to talk about them because they're real. For example, one day I'm on a corner of my neighborhood with a friend. A guy pulls up on a moped, and the guy who pulls up on a moped, I don't know who he is because he doesn't frequent my group of friends and people. And I must have said something to him, and he was like, "Who you talking to? I'll shoot you right now." And I'm like, "Bro, what do you?" It was just so random. Like, wait, so you'll kill me right now for saying whatever I said. And it was nothing offensive. I do remember that. You'll kill me right now for a single sentence. You don't value life that much. You don't care about the fact that my life could be important enough to reach several people of all different ethnicities. You don't care about the fact that you cutting my life short could potentially, you know, you know, shut down the possibility of me creating other children, offspring that could be so important that they could save your life or your children's life. You don't care about any of that. And it showed, in that situation shows the mentality of guys in the hood. And what I am not saying is that I could have very easily went and told my father, went and grabbed my own gun, not told my father, found out who he was, and exacted revenge. All these are the things that happen to people like myself in in the hood every day, every single day. And there's, for that one story, there's about 15 more. And in that situation, I remember like just being so confused that like I don't want to hurt this guy. He's threatening to hurt me, but he's not. So I'm willing to give you know, in a situation, because when you're growing up in a neighborhood, you're growing up in the jungle. So in the jungle, you have to show yourself as a predator or you'll be preyed on. And in that situation, I can tell you exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, is he serious? Because it's like a mental illness. Like, I'm just having a conversation. You're already on murder. Like, that's what you woke up on. And I remember myself thinking to myself, like, yo, I can kill this guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he got me fucked up. I can, like, I'm not the person to threaten like this. But I also remember myself saying to myself, I remember telling myself this, like, it's not worth it. And I'm just thankful I had that type of mindset and maturity because a lot of people don't have the confidence in themselves to realize, like, I'm better than killing this person. You see what I'm saying? That probably doesn't make sense. Like, I'm better than killing this person because I can kill this person very easily, just as easy as they think they can kill me. I can kill this person. And then what do I get from that? His family looking for me, the police look up like, so it's an ignorance. When it's all said and done, it's an ignorance. It's like I could have answered his ignorance with my own ignorance. So you're threatening me. because that's what it was. It was a threat. He doesn't know me from a can of paint. He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know I can go back to my house because he didn't even. The thing about it is he made this very grand threat, but did not act on it. That's a dangerous thing to do where I'm from. So okay, you're gonna let me walk away after you're threatening me. Okay, right? And I'm just thankful to myself, believe it or not, that I had the maturity to allow that situation to just blow by. Because in letting it blow by, it allowed me to go much further. And I think at that time I realized like this guy is a, you know, he's not worth my future. I knew I had a future, even though I was looking at the jungle. I can you picture a young man looking at the jungle and getting threats hurled at him. That wasn't the only threats. At that particular point, I had threats coming from everywhere. Like seriously, like it was. He was saying he was gonna give this person think he gonna do something. That person think is like. If I was really like about that life, I would have been killing people for days. Like it's just like I would have had to become a serial killer to actually live up to what people think I should live up to. Even then my name was Rick the Dawn, you know what I'm saying? Even then. So it's like, do I gotta kill him? Kill him? It's like I'll be killing people every day. That's what it felt like. But I'm just so thankful that I had enough maturity about myself to realize that you don't have to play into the tricks of the devil. You don't have to play into the games. You don't have to kill everybody. Sometimes you can just be mature enough to realize this man hasn't touched me. This man hasn't reached for anything. I'll let it be. And I'll let life hear this part right here. And I'll let life deal with him because I can't kill everybody. You see what I'm saying? So I'll let life deal with him. Life will teach him. I don't know who that person. I don't even know his name. That's my first time meeting him. But I don't know where he is today. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's experienced a multitude of pains and hurts. It wouldn't surprise me. That's if he's alive. So, because if you're meeting people for the first time and you threaten them, it's only a matter of time before you roll the dice the wrong way, and the person you threaten takes it seriously enough to do something on that particular. You know, it just wasn't going to be me though. I had a future from that point forward. From that point, rather, I ended up going to college, graduated from college, being the first person on my father's side of the family to even touch a college campus, to touch a college degree, right? So, I was bigger than my circumstances, but a lot of people don't have that mindset and a lot of people don't make it out. So, to wrap it all up, I'll say it was really great to see Coach Mosley also go through the same challenges of growing up in the jungle and then coming out of it. And we wonder when you look at him and you're looking at him and you're saying, like, why is he so this or why is he so that? It's because he went through a drunk jungle, man. Like he had a gun put to his head. And I'm sure he's man enough to have retaliated, but he didn't. But he didn't. So it's just crazy, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I felt it. He also said something that was very important in this episode. He talked about his players. He just said, you don't know these guys' story. You don't know what they're going through. And I really, really could relate to that. Like when you see people, especially on a college campus, or when you got players that's coming to you and you're the coach, you don't know any of these people's story and the things that they're going through. You just don't know it. So you have to, in fact, I'll stretch that out further just when you're walking past people, driving past people, and they might cut you off when you're driving. You're like, yo, this person's an idiot. But you never really know what they're going through, do you? Right? You never know. Or when somebody leaves a negative comment under my YouTube channel, it's just like, I don't, you don't really know what they're going through. You don't. And whether the hood or the suburbs or the country, everybody has their challenges. Every single person on this planet has problems. And it takes a lot to understand that. You know what I'm saying? And to give people grace to have their moments. That's what it is. You don't even know what they're going through. But it's about giving them grace to have that moment. Like, okay, I don't know why you picking me today to exert your energy, your negative energy, but you know what? I understand. As long as you don't touch me, don't put my family in harm, I understand. You know what I'm saying? But that's what this episode brought out of me in terms of what I wanted to say. Uh, I know it's a little unorthodox. You probably want to hear very, very specific points about the show itself. But I really just wanted to talk about the overarching messages that I got subliminally. That's what I wanted to talk about. This is what I got from when I watched the entire episode. These are the emotions that it brought out. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Right? But very great episode. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. Go check out episode 5. A very, very strong episode. And shout out to the creators, the executive producers of this show. This was the one right here, episode 5. I think from here it goes downhill, though. That's just my prediction. It looks like it. It looks like it's going to go downhill. They're going to probably win, go to the playoffs, and get knocked out. It's going to be a lot of heartache. That's what I got from this episode. Like, this was the peak. All right. But anyway, if you enjoyed this in any form, like the video. You know how it is. So subscribe, because I'm gonna be here for every episode I watch and get my opinion on it. But like I said, if you enjoyed it, you know what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? But it's been good. I'll holler at you.